todos. Uh, it's a pleasure to be here with this group and with our Deputy Assistant Secretary, Josh Volz, to discuss the U.S. energy policy, the partnership that we have with Brazil, and the areas where we can see opportunities for even more growth within the relationship that we have. I want to thank the organizers of this conference, MIT, that's been at the center of this since the beginning, along with all of the sponsors that were mentioned. The element that I think isn't lost on anyone that's at this conference is that the energy sector is not only an important sector within the economy, but it's also the sector that mobilizes every other sector of the economy. And it's the foundation not only for the economy, but it's at the center of the United States, and frankly, Brazil's national security strategy as well. And so wonderful that we have so many people from academia, from the private sector, from governments, from the entrepreneurs and the inventors that will launch the next generation of technology that we need to meet the global energy needs. And with that, I want to turn to Josh and say that, first off, welcome. I tried to teach Josh that my own energy reduction policy of not using the energy to put on a tie was a carioca habit that I think we should adopt in Washington. But maybe on his next visit he'll follow that cue. But Josh, Energy Secretary Wright has spoken about the need to make sure that we're looking at the full menu of options as far as addressing energy needs. There's an enormous focus on maximizing the resources that we have within our own country. Perhaps as a starting point, could you please discuss the current energy policy? I know Secretary Rubio has spoken openly about the support for this approach, and we both know that it's a priority of this administration to lead in the energy sector in the world.
Well, Councilor Rollins, first and foremost, thank you for having this conversation with me. I think that these are the types of conversations that we should be having more of. Thank you again to our organizers, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that is the alma mater of Secretary Chris Wright. So the Secretary sends a warm welcome to all the MIT alums here and asked me to convey his personal gratitude for the strength of that network and the amazing work that MIT alum are doing all over the world and including here in Brazil. As you've said, Council, energy is something that touches everything. It is the foundation upon which everything is built, and there's nothing that is immune from the touch of energy and energy policy. Sometimes we like to say that we don't work for the Department of Energy, we work for the Department of Everything. Because of the fundamental nature that energy plays in all of the things that we do. And under President Trump's leadership and under Secretary Wright's leadership, we're putting energy back at the forefront of what we're doing, both domestically to increase the amount of energy that we have for U.S. industry, U.S. citizens, to increase that economic opportunity, drive industrial progress, and lift up people from poverty into abundance. And really that shift from scarcity to abundance is what is the foundation of the U.S. policy when it comes to energy, both domestically and internationally. And as you said, Consul, what we are doing first starts at home. And we are unlocking the potential of the resource base, which the United States has been so richly blessed, through trying to streamline regulations, trying to accelerate the pace of capital deployment, which is essential for funding these very large-scale projects. The thing about energy is that it's a very capital intensive project. And without that financing, there's nothing that's going to come to fruition. You can have incredible resources in the ground. You can have as much sun as you could ever hope for, as much wind. But if you do not have the capital to mobilize to unlock those resources, it's all for naught. And you can look at many, many jurisdictions throughout the world that have been blessed with tremendous energy resources that are still struggling to benefit from those resources because the financial models and the financial tools just aren't there yet. So in the United States, we're streamlining permitting. We're unlocking the ability for entrepreneurs to move forward and get to market and scale faster. One of the big headwinds that we've seen historically in the United States and for a lot of our partners and allies throughout the world is the time it takes from conception to construction. And that has everything to do with the timing of permitting and the ability to move forward with speed. And if you connect that back to what I was talking about in terms of capital, capital is impatient. It wants to go somewhere. It wants to work. It wants to be productive. And so if we can't get from conception to construction faster, that capital is going to go somewhere else. And there's a lot of other opportunities globally for that capital to go. So really trying to work with our private sector partners to figure out how can we streamline this process? How can we get to the word yes? And how can we get to final investment decision quicker? So, we're here in Brazil, which is an incredible economic powerhouse in Latin America. Very, very blessed with not just tremendous energy resources, but also tremendous human capital. And embarrassingly, I must admit, this is my first time in Brazil and my first time in Rio de Janeiro. So the warm welcome that I've received is definitely something that is going to be bringing me back. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what we're doing here on the bilateral to take advantage of those energy resources and use that energy as a connective tissue to grow the relationship.
Thank you. The one of the things that um, was more of a surprise, perhaps, than it should have been when I arrived a year ago, was just how integrated our energy plans are. When I go speak to Petrobras, they're explaining the projects that they're doing with Exxon and Chevron. When I talk with other U.S. companies that are providing technology to mobilize in the best possible way the expertise that exists here related to exploring offshore resources. The integration is just amazing in the oil and gas sector, and we play a role in facilitating the relationships and helping the relationships along that are already in place. You're aware that both Exxon and Chevron recently won the blocks that were put up on the equatorial margin. This was based on long-term relationships. Both of those companies have been here over 100 years. Way back, my grandfather worked for Standard Oil, and I was surprised to learn that Standard Oil, now Exxon, had been here going back to the time when my grandfather was actually working. He was working in the United States, but the solidity of the relationship here allows us to make sure that when we have congressional delegations coming through, we are able to reach out to our contacts in the industry, in academia, in the regulatory bodies, and they can get a better understanding of all of the ways that we're working together. In the nuclear sector, we've got Westinghouse that's provided the technology for the two operating plants and is working on the standing up of the third plant here. Holtec has been working on providing storage for the spent fuel rods. And we see opportunities, enormous opportunities in the small modular reactor field, where there are a number of U.S. companies that are looking at going into that field. It's really just across the board, and we do everything that we can to make sure that the conversations that need to take place are taking place. and we work hard to connect U.S. technology and know-how with the industries here through our foreign commercial service. But also, Brazil is the biggest participant in the I'm going to get this wrong, I think, offshore technology. It's in Houston.
OTC. Yep.
OTC, yeah, I know the acronym, but but not the letters, showing I'm a government functionary. Um, uh, but just the symbiosis that exists is fantastic, and every day it grows even stronger. And we do our best to kind of facilitate exactly what you said. Make sure investors are aware of opportunities here and in the United States, and just continue to strengthen those relationships. Um, because I touched on the nuclear sector, I wondered if you could speak a little bit to the administration's plans within that sector. It was interesting in a conversation here recently. It was said that we've now come to the point where environmental groups recognize the absolute critical importance of nuclear in an overall energy matrix that provides for all of our needs. But with that, I'd appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah. So we're all in on nuclear. The administration, as you've pointed out, sees nuclear energy as the bedrock of the future of energy in the United States and globally. There's no way that we get to electrify and drive reindustrial and industrialization on the scale that we have ambitions to do so without a significant increase in civil nuclear technology. Here at the Department of Energy, we are the U.S. government's nuclear agency. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we go from where we are, where nuclear plays in most countries, a few notwithstanding like France, a very small portion of the overall power generation, to a significant increase in a short amount of time. And, you know, one of the things that we also spend a lot of time thinking about is how we don't trade one vulnerability for another vulnerability. And by that, I'm talking about the supply chains that we depend upon for so many of our energy inputs, and the nuclear fuel cycle being a significant component of that. Here in the United States, we still get approximately 27% of our nuclear fuel from Russia. Russia has proven itself to be an unreliable partner in all manners, but especially when it comes to energy resources. And the attacking of nuclear facilities, civilian nuclear facilities, by Russian forces in Ukraine really just kind of underscores the way that we need to be looking at diversifying our fuel supply chain just for the current reactor fleet. But if we are looking to increase that by 3, 5, 7, 10x over the next 20 years, which is the ambition, we need to figure out where we're going to get those resources and that fuel. And so we're also spending a lot of time thinking about how do we diversify that fuel supply chain. So we don't want our partners and allies to be trading one vulnerability for another. And so that element is very much top of mind for us. And the partnership here in Brazil with Westinghouse is one that we're very, very proud of. Those relationships, those nuclear relationships between countries, are long term. It's not dating; it's definitely marriage. And that 100 plus year relationship that comes with a nuclear relationship is something that we see as an important part of binding our countries together with our international partners in helping to drive that economic development, that industrialization, and the electrification to bring people out of poverty, which is really the core of what we're trying to do, and what Secretary Wright's central policy is, which is bettering human lives and lifting people up.
Thank you. I have had the opportunity to visit the nuclear facilities, I think 3 times now. I mentioned to you that my son studied physics and is headed into astrophysics. So it was interesting to be able to see things that I don't understand, but he understands better than me. And on one of the trips, I was able to actually visit with him and talk with the folks there. The convention on supplemental compensation for nuclear damage is one of the things that we've been encouraging Brazil to sign on to. And it loops back to what you mentioned as far as this gives investors confidence to go into the sectors. We both saw that the World Bank is now going to move back into financing the nuclear sector after not having done so for some time. But this is an area where our colleagues in the embassy are working on this policy element to make sure that everything is in order so that the investors that you spoke about that are an absolutely critical element, and I was remiss in not mentioning them as a part of the energy conversation at the beginning, that they have the assurances that they need. And my understanding is this convention actually limits liability for the signatories to the convention. So it's something that provides peace of mind for the investors, is a global standard, and would be something that would allow Brazil to advance in this. I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
No, I think that's spot on. And the 1, 2, 3 agreement that we have is the kind of guiding principle document that helps us lean into our relationship with our foreign partners when it comes to the nuclear space, and giving investors confidence, because it is such a long-term relationship, is incredibly important. So cannot emphasize enough what you just said.
So we touched on a bit of the fossil fuel industry, and you mentioned the priorities within the administration related to our own resources within our own territory. Can you speak a bit more to how we will interact in the international fields, the ways that we're working for partnerships that are mutually beneficial, and looking for resources in other parts of the world?
Yeah, hydrocarbon resources are an incredibly important, not just incredibly important, but it's an absolutely essential part of the world's energy mix. Um, in the history of energy since the dawn of mankind, there has been only one energy resource that is no longer used today at this very moment. And that is not coal. It's not, wood and biomass. It's whale oil. And so when you take that fact and look at how the world's global energy mix has changed over the years, it's been additive in nature. It's not been subtractive. And so hydrocarbon resources continue and will continue to play a significant role in global economies and energy mixes moving forward. The question is, can we do it more efficiently? Can we do it cleaner and greener? As our off-takers, as our partners, as our consumers continue to demand, as constituencies continue to demand cleaner, greener, and more efficient energy, is that something that we can do from a U.S. perspective to meet those needs? And the answer is a resounding yes. And it gets back to what you were talking about earlier, Consul, in terms of the technology and the innovation that takes place in the United States to produce those resources cleaner and greener and more efficiently than anywhere else in the world. And that's not to say that there's not room for improvement, because there is. And U.S. companies are working day and night with institutions and research institutions like MIT to figure out ways to extract more with a lower carbon footprint and greater efficiency, because that is beneficial to everyone involved. And it creates a greater opportunity for economic value addition. So it just makes business sense to do it that way as well. And that's why U.S. industry is on that track and hurtling towards getting even better. So the way that we hope to work with our international partners in that regard is to help bring U.S. technology, U.S. practice for exploration, development, and transportation. Something that Brazil is a major player in is global transportation, and that's a major source of inefficiency in our energy system. The way that we can get to greater efficiency in terms of the way that we move things and move energy around the world will benefit everybody. And I think Brazil has a a really interesting role and interesting opportunity to be at the forefront of leading that shift in increasing the energy efficiency and the energy density of the way that we transport energy around the world. So we're looking to partner with our partners and allies with technical expertise. There's a lot of investors, as we've talked about, who see the opportunities globally and say, this is something that we understand. This is something that we value. This is something that we think we can have a long-term partnership with. And so that capital addition is also very important as well. But hydrocarbons, are such an essential input into everything from the lubricants in wind turbines to the vaccines and pharmaceuticals that we all depend on for life-saving additions. So it is an incredibly important part of the global energy mix. It's an incredibly important part of our daily lives. So figuring out how we allow that to continue to expand to meet the world's growing energy demand is really critical. And that research and that technological advancement is really helping us get there to a place where we can do more of it and we can do it cleaner and greener and more efficiently.
Excellent. I want to back up a little bit and just mention that Josh has been working energy issues for 24 years. He's spanned several different administrations and watched the landscape change over time. And it's outstanding to have this opportunity for me to learn from you. And I hope that it's also beneficial to the group. One of the first events that I attended here was ROGI, which is Rio Oil, Gas, and Energy, and amazing opportunity to expand my knowledge of the partnerships that already exist, the technology that's being used. The third letter in that is gas, and it's an absolute priority for the United States, has been and may even be higher with the current administration. I want to hear your thoughts on that in the framework of Brazil at the G20 put forth measures to facilitate the use of gas globally, to get away from the wood burning that you mentioned, to get away from the coal burning. The benefits of it are enormous as far as immediate health damage, but also just the carbon footprint that you alluded to. But if you could speak to the way that we're working in the gas sector, I think that would be useful.
Sure. In about 3 years ago, Europe started experiencing a significant energy crisis. And that was immediately followed up by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which sent energy prices soaring. But the important thing to remember here is that those energy prices on the continent were already very, very high pre-invasion. So it was those conditions precedent that existed that were already driving energy prices for our European partners and allies through the roof. And as a result, globally, because gas is a globally traded commodity. The idea that we would want to take that resource and throttle that resource because it represents a hydrocarbon addition to the energy landscape, I think is just sort of wrong thinking. The problem we're trying to solve for in that equation is emissions and carbon intensity. But we cannot do that at the expense of energy addition. We cannot do that at the expense of the growth of economies. And you look at some of the choices that have been made throughout the world to throttle back on the use of gas. In almost every single jurisdiction that you see that decision made, you will also see significant industrial contraction. That's not good for GDP. That's not good for employment. That's not good for political reelection. And it's not good for human lives. And I think what you touched on, Consul, is really a really important element. And that is gas also represents in many jurisdictions a significant decarbonization opportunity when you're talking about fuel switching from biomass and from coal. And that massive decarbonization win that you can get from increasing the use of gas is something that we want to be able to help provide to our partners and allies globally. And as the largest producer of gas in the world, the United States stands ready to help. Um, we will, because of what we are doing and what President Trump has done in terms of regulation, we will be putting on, or deregulation as the case may be, we will be putting 4 times as much LNG on the water by 2035 as we have today at this very moment. That is a massive addition. The other statistic that you should remember about that is that 95% of that is already spoken for. It's already contracted. And that does not account for the significant amount of growth opportunity that gas has globally and the decarbonization and efficiency gains that we can get from switching from lower efficiency fuels to gas. The health element, I think, is a really important thing as well. Secretary Wright is very, very focused on the ability to really make progress within this administration on global clean cooking initiatives. And the only way that we're going to be able to credibly make progress on global clean cooking is with gas and gaseous fuels. E-cooking is not something that can be relied upon, and it's really just not energy dense enough or efficient enough to make the kind of impact that we want to make on global clean cooking. So gas really does have the opportunity to present some significant decarbonization opportunities, global partnership opportunities with the United States as the largest producer of gas. As LNG technology continues to improve with U.S. companies like Cheniere and Venture Global being able to bring cargoes on cleaner and more efficiently and quicker than any of our global competitors, that opportunity for partnership is really, really strong. So we see this as a central pillar of what the United States can bring in terms of partnership, prosperity, and energy security.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The impact of the cooking issue, particularly on women globally and children, because it's a household issue in a lot of cases, is something that, I've been working, as long as you have on the diplomacy side, and I've watched that be such an important issue for a long period of time. And it would be wonderful if we could, work with others in the world to address that issue. So that's an element of technology addressing energy needs. Providing a higher technology way of addressing a daily need. What we hear about a lot is how much energy AI will consume, what's required for data centers. Mayor Pais here in Rio, who has a global profile, recently declared that he wants Rio to be an AI capital for the world. Could you speak some to perhaps technological advances or the way that we're working to foment the next generation of technology that will address the energy challenges that we see? Because I know that's a priority of the administration as well.
Well, you went and asked the question, the AI question that is sort of ubiquitous out there in terms of what's it going to look like, what's it going to require, and how's it going to change our lives. When we talk about AI and energy, there's 2 elements to it. I think there's energy for AI and AI for energy. And the previous question, energy for AI, is one that is a lot more straightforward and I think a lot more understood than the latter. And how we fuel and power these large data centers that are driving the AI revolution is also something that we're very focused on within the administration, and that Secretary Wright spends a lot of his time thinking about as well. The idea of locating those data centers where there are large supplies of reliable baseload energy is critically important. You can't just drop these things into any jurisdiction that wants them. You have to have reliable baseload power that is close and abundant. And obviously, the cheaper it is, the more attractive that jurisdiction is going to be for those AI data centers to be located. So again, it's a global competition for where these data processing centers are going to be located, and a lot of it is going to be driven by the energy resources that are available there, whether it's gas fire power, ultra hot rock, deep geothermal, whether it's large scale hydro. Those energy resources are going to determine where those data centers are placed. So that's kind of one side of the equation in terms of how we power data centers. The other side is what we like to call, addition by subtraction, and that is the energy efficiency element of things. And so as technologies become increasingly efficient, as we look for ways to reduce or use the heat coming out of these data centers, you'll start to see the balance start to, emerge in terms of where those data centers are placed, the technology that's used to both fuel them and to cool them. And so we, as the Department of Energy, have an incredible resource and one of the United States, crown jewels when it comes to innovation and technical collaboration in our national laboratory system. We have 17 national laboratories throughout the United States that are really driving over the horizon and cutting edge technology and the evolution in what energy resources are going to be able to be used for and what energy resources are going to be able to accomplish. So we are very, very focused on that. The latter part of that is that what is AI going to do for energy? Looking at the way that we architect energy systems and the way that we utilize the resources and optimize for the resources in all of the different jurisdictions that we find ourselves. No two states in the United States have the exact same energy mix. No two countries in the world have the exact same energy mix because these are all unique scenarios and unique jurisdictions. And so everything is going to be a little bit bespoke, and the optimization of those energy systems and how we look at improving and increasing the deployment and the penetration of electrification and the ability and abundance of energy is going to be very, very, very aided by the use of artificial intelligence. And so we're really looking forward to the day when that tool is something that all of our city planners, all of our, people that are responsible for industrial policy are fluent in and have access to, because that optimization is going to yield incredible benefits. One of the things on a very, very micro scale, getting back to, some of the headwinds in terms of capital investments and getting things to final investment decision, is that permitting time. So in the United States, when you want to go to file certain types of permits for energy projects, that permit process can be up to 1,000 pages long. But the vast majority of it, the vast majority, 85% of those pages are exactly identical from project to project to project. So why would we have a human spending time poring over every single one of those pages that are exactly identical from project type to project type? Well, we can feed those things through an AI-driven process that takes the review time for that from 6 months for that portion of the permit down to 2 weeks. And then the human can engage with the final 15% that's bespoke and needs to have human eyes on. So that's one way that we're using AI for energy to accelerate that permitting time till we can get from conception to construction faster.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about the review process being augmented by the actual use of AI. Great book, Abundance, I read recently that delves into how much things are held up because of that exact permitting process, and it would be great to leverage technology to facilitate the start and completion of projects. You touched on different sources for the data centers and for AI. What's come up already in discussions here is the small modular reactors specific in that field. Would and the talk is mostly that horizons on that fully coming online seem to be in the 5-year range. It's is is you maybe make me think that's optimistic. But I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, because it seems like our tech sector is looking heavily at that. And so I would imagine that they're interacting with you as well.
Very, very much so. And we are all waiting with bated breath for the first small modular reactor to be operational. We're, I think, perhaps a little bit more conservative in our estimation of when that will come online in Canada with our Canadian colleagues, probably closer to 6-ish, maybe 7 years. But certainly within 10 years, you're going to see several different models of small modular reactors in test case usage throughout the world. One of the interesting things about small modular reactors that perhaps some folks don't realize is that small modular reactors have been in use in the world for more than 60 years, because that's how we in the United States Navy and also other partners and allies power our nuclear submarines. So it's that small modular reactor technology that exists in submarines that has been part of the driving force to lead the technological innovation to bring those things out from underneath the wave tops and to commercialize them in a way that can be grown and scaled. There's a lot of different reactor designs out there. From a Department of Energy perspective, we don't pick winners. We want to see that technology, the concept of small modular reactor technology and the perfusion of civil nuclear technology move forward. And there are some great U.S. companies like NuScale, Holtec, others that have great technology in the pipeline, and we are partnering with a number of companies, a number of foreign partners on some of those technologies. GE Hitachi is one of the leading small modular reactor designs as well, and so even in our nuclear sector, we see the importance of partnership. And I think that's something that I'd really like to underscore. If there's one thing that I could leave folks with today, and that is the absolute centrality and the importance of partnership. The complexity, the nature of the problems and the challenges that we face today globally are moving at a speed and a level of complexity that demands collaboration. We cannot go it alone when it comes to solving the world's energy trilemma of energy affordability, energy security, and decarbonization and climate change. We have to work together to solve that energy trilemma. And the bedrock of the administration's policy is that can be done. None of those things are mutually exclusive. You have to pursue all of them. But in so doing, we seek to do that through partnership that leads to prosperity and leads to profitability. So the small modular reactor element is something that we're very excited about. It will change communities forever. But as part of that, we're also looking very, very heavily at what we can do to secure the fuel resources to power that technology, because it doesn't matter if you've got a great engine. If you don't have any fuel to put inside of it, you're not going to go anywhere.
Thank you. One thing you touched on in an earlier answer on AI again, a use that I hadn't necessarily thought of was the grids that we depend upon to bring the energy wherever it needs to go. And I know that that's an area where we're looking at the infrastructure and frankly, maybe trying to overcome some of these differences that we have from state to state. Absolutely seems to be global agreement that there can be more efficiency there. How are we working internationally in that sphere, as far as also making sure that the U.S. companies that are involved in that type of activity overseas are working to make sure grids are in place? I know it's a priority for Brazil as well, as they're looking to make sure that the entire population has access to energy. And grids are an area that I don't understand well, and so I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Well, at the risk of speaking for my colleagues in our grid deployment office, which is an incredibly fascinating part of the Department of Energy, I will give you what little I know, and then kindly direct anybody with proper questions to the website and our colleagues at the Grid Deployment Office. The grid is probably the single greatest headway to electrification and energy addition in the world today. It's not generation capacity, it's not fuel resources, it's the grid. Um, the grid is a very, very complicated element of our energy ecosystem. It is an element of our energy ecosystem that's sort of challenging to finance, which keeps a lot of capital on the sidelines, which of course means that the deployment of that infrastructure and those assets often falls to the government. Um, Part of what the headwinds for improving the grid and increasing the grid include things like back to permitting time and permitting time driven by land use. So when we look at the grid here in the United States, we're trying to do things that accelerate the ability for the existing grid to be more resilient and to carry more electrons. And so we're using technology and the technology of reconductoring existing infrastructure rather than by necessarily building new greenfield transmission lines to help us get to our goals of increased electrification. And no one need look any further than, some of the neighborhoods that we've all walked into, and you look up at the, power poles, and it looks like a rat's nest of wires going in 17,000 different directions to understand that there's efficiencies to be gained there. But I think the challenge is figuring out how do we incentivize investment into that sector? How do we decrease the amount of time that it takes to get those pieces of infrastructure online? And what do we do to make sure that that is the grid of tomorrow, not the grid of today? One that is flexible, one that has the capacity to onboard large-scale renewable energy resources. That's the kind of grid that the world needs, and figuring out how we can deploy that quicker and more efficiently is exactly the issue at hand. So we're leaning on both technology and our relationship between the policy community to both support and incentivize the technologists and the capitalists to really lean into this element of our energy infrastructure ecosystem, because right now it's something that we are really challenged in finding the appropriate amount of private sector interest in facilitating. So that's kind of a long-winded answer by saying it's incredibly important. It's incredibly complex. It is the single greatest headwind to energy addition globally, and we're working on it.
Thank you. I want to give you a chance to have the last word, but it's really meaningful for me to hear all of the all of the priorities and how they match with the work that we're doing here in Brazil. Everything that you outlined is the way that we're engaging through all of our consulates and our embassy in Brasilia. Um, uh, yeah, we share an education note in that we went to the National Defense University and focused on national resource strategy. And I remember a speaker that came there. I don't know if came when you were there also, but the quote that it sticks in my head from him was, "The future is here. It's just not spread evenly." And so that there are many aspects where we have the opportunity to learn from Brazil on the way that they're approaching things, and Brazil has an opportunity to learn from us. And being two global leaders in energy, we have the opportunity to improve things for the entire planet. And that that relationship is so critical, not only to both of our countries, but frankly to the wider world. And it's outstanding to have so many opportunities to work on this critical element. Come back to what I said, it's not a sector, it's the sector that is the foundation for basically everything we do as human beings. really grateful for you coming here. I know that I learned things in listening to you. We will continue to engage. The Department of Energy is a critical element of the administration, and we will make sure that we're inviting people down and continuing the exchanges that are taking place, both in person and virtually. But thank you very much for making the time to be with us. And I do want to give you the last word.
Well, thank you, Consul Owens. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you today. We need more conversations like this, and I think that you know, when it comes to the United States government, it is one team and one fight. And as our tip of the spear representative down here, it's heartening to see that the consulate under your leadership and the embassy more broadly understands the centrality of these issues and is leaning forward into all of the opportunities that energy collaboration and energy cooperation bring to our bilateral relationship. You know, we are standing at a fairly unique point in time when it comes to the energy landscape. The global energy pie has never been bigger, yet global energy poverty continues to increase. Um, my colleagues at MIT who are math scholars and can do complex equations while having dinner table conversations on the back of a napkin would be better placed to explain the mathematics of that. But the simple fact is that we have to figure out a way to get the energy from where it is into the hands of the people and the jurisdictions that need it. And that's very much the focus of this administration and Secretary Wright's leadership at the Department of Energy has been very clear from the first day that he walked into the building, saying energy is about improving the lives of people. And if we're not putting people at the center of our energy policy, we're doing energy policy wrong. So the opportunities are abundant. That's a space that need not be, expounded upon too much because it's very obvious, and there's a lot of opportunity for the private sector to not just do good but also do well. And I think the principles of economic viability are a really important thing to remember here because that energy pie being as large as it is creates a lot of opportunities for choice. And if our energy policy doesn't, at the heart of it, involve the financial and commercial sustainability of our choices, then we are consistently putting ourselves in places of vulnerability. So the idea that we need to partner more closely with our private sector counterparts and stakeholders as we seek to solve these complex problems, not alone but together, is really at the heart of what the administration's energy policy is driving towards. So with that, I just want to say thank you, and I very much look forward to my next trip to Brazil and Rio de Janeiro.